In this video, we're going to talk about the Norwegian Sea. Now, this isn't just any body of water, it's this incredible place in northern Europe where the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans meet. It's a world of huge depths, tons of life, and it's super important for our planet's climate. But it's hiding a pretty cool secret. So, let's get right to it. The big mystery is this: how on earth does a sea this far north, sitting right next to the freezing Greenland Sea, stay completely ice-free, even in the middle of winter? That's the main question we're going to tackle. And to figure it all out, we've got a bit of a roadmap. First, we'll figure out exactly where it is. Then we'll look at the powerful forces that make it so special. After that, we'll check out the amazing life it supports, see what it means to us humans, both the good and the bad, and we'll wrap it all up with 5 facts that I think will really surprise you. Okay, first things first, let's get our bearings and pinpoint exactly where in the world we are, because really, understanding its location is the key to understanding everything else about it. So think of the Norwegian Sea as this vital gateway. It's tucked away northwest of Norway, with Iceland and the Faroe Islands on its borders. It forms this really important link between the warmer waters of the North Atlantic and the chillier Barents and Greenland seas up north. And we are not talking about a small sea here. It covers almost 1.4 million square kilometers. That's massive. But what's maybe even more mind-blowing is that it holds about 2 million cubic kilometers of water. That number alone tells you this sea is incredibly deep. And that huge volume is all thanks to its depth. See, a lot of seas sit on these shallow continental shelves, but not this one. The Norwegian seafloor just drops off. On average, it's about 2,000 meters deep. That's 2 kilometers straight down. And if you go to its deepest parts, down in its 2 big basins, it plunges to nearly 4,000 meters. Just incredible. And that amazing depth plays a huge role in how this sea works, which brings us right to our next section. Right, so that immense depth is the key piece of the puzzle. Now it's time to look at the powerful engine that drives this whole system. Its currents. This is where we finally get the answer to our big question: why does it stay ice-free? So the secret is all about this epic clash of temperatures. You've got the warm, salty North Atlantic current flowing up from the south, basically acting like a giant radiator. At the same time, the cold East Iceland current is pushing down from the north. This constant movement of warm water releases so much heat that the entire sea stays ice-free. And here's why that's a huge deal for all of us. This process is a critical part of the world's ocean conveyor belt, which helps regulate climate patterns across the globe. Seriously, what happens here affects weather everywhere. In this chart just shows you the result perfectly. I mean, look how stable and pretty warm that water is. Even in February, the coldest month, the surface temperature stays well above freezing, and then by August it gets up to a pretty mild 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. Now, this special mix of warm and cold water doesn't just mess with the temperature, it also creates this incredibly rich ecosystem. So let's take a look at all the life that calls this amazing transition zone home. Because the Norwegian Sea is where Arctic and boreal climates smash together, you get life from both worlds. The whole food web is built on this rich soup of phytoplankton and tiny critters like copepods and krill. This, in turn, supports massive populations of fish. In fact, it's one of the most important spawning grounds for Atlantic herring anywhere. Go a little deeper, and you find these incredible deep-sea cities made of vast cold water coral reefs. And of course, all that food attracts the big guys, from majestic orcas and humpback whales to huge colonies of seabirds like puffins. It's just teeming with life. Well, an environment this full of life was bound to get our attention. So let's shift gears and talk about our relationship with the sea, from the resources we pull out of it to the very real risks we've created. For hundreds of years, fishing was everything. The Lofoten Islands, especially, are just legendary for their cod and herring. But since the 90s, the big money has shifted to the huge oil and gas reserves found under the seabed. And because it stays ice-free, it's a super important shipping lane on the northern sea route, offering a nice shortcut between Europe and Asia. But of course, all this activity has a price. Overfishing has put some serious strain on those historic fish stocks. Pollution is a big and growing problem, with things like abandoned fishing gear being a major source of trash in the sea. And then there's the really sneaky stuff, like microplastics, which are now found literally everywhere, from the surface all the way down to the deep sea floor. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, studies have found an average of 279 pieces of litter for every single square kilometer of the seafloor. It's a pretty harsh reminder that our footprint reaches even these remote, deep parts of our planet. Alright, to to finish things off, let's do a quick fire round of 5 surprising facts that make the Norwegian Sea even more fascinating. Let's go through these. First, this sea is ancient. It started forming 250 million years ago as the continents drifted apart. Second, it was the site of a disaster. About 8,000 years ago, a gigantic underwater landslide called the Struga Slide set off a massive tsunami. Third, as we know, its depth is just wild because it's not sitting on a continental shelf. Fourth, its nickname is Norway's radiator, and it's so good at it that it actually does more to keep Norway's winters mild than the famous Gulf Stream does. And finally, it's home to the Saltstraumen, one of the strongest tidal currents in the world, the kind of thing that probably inspired all those old myths about giant ship-eating whirlpools, the maelstroms. Pretty cool, right? Alright, that is it for this video, everyone. Thank you for watching, please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video.